Hello, everybody. Let me tell you a new story today. Today, I want to share with you a real case that was originally just a common murder case in China, but it has been reported by many media outlets, including national level media. Normally, our country's media really discusses matters related to ghosts, souls, or things that science cannot explain. But this case is one of the exceptions. It can be said that this is an impeccable real event related to the soul, and even the official media could no longer find ridiculous explanations to cover it up. So, let me tell you what this case is. This incident occurred in June 2008 in a small village at the foot of Changbai Mountain in Jilin province. A female villager with the surname Liu called the police to report that she had found a piece of clothing with bloodstains under the firewood pile close to her yard. The clothing belonged to her business partner called Zhang Yongcheng. She recognized the clothes because she and Zhang were in the business of buying and selling mushrooms, ferns, and other mountain products. So she was certain that the clothes belonged to him. However, he had been missing for several days. His phone was unreachable and he was not at home. Today, she found his coat with bloodstains on it, which frightened her, and she reported it to the police. The police sent officers to Liu's house for more information. Liu said, "The last time I saw him was a few nights ago when I called him to my house to settle accounts. And then he went home. Yesterday was the day we agreed to go together to buy mountain products again. But he did not come, and I couldn't get through to him on the phone." The police then began to investigate Zhang Yongcheng and found that he was not a local, originally from Liaoning, another province. He was unmarried, had no girlfriend, no children, and no relatives in the area. He had an elder sister named Zhang Yan in his hometown in Liaoning. The police called Zhang Yan and asked, "Do you know Zhang Yongcheng?" Zhang Yan said, "Yes. He's my younger brother. Who is this?" The police said, "We are the police from Jilin. Your brother has been missing for several days. Has he come to your place? Has he returned to Liaoning?" Zhang Yan said, "No, he hasn't come back." The police said, "He has a business partner here who called us, saying she couldn't get in touch with him and she found a piece of your brother's clothing with blood stains on it." Upon hearing this, Zhang Yan became worried and rushed from Liaoning to Changbai Mountain in Jilin, arriving at her brother's rented house with a spare key. Her brother had given her a spare key when he had returned to his hometown before. The police and Zhang Yan opened Zhang Yongcheng's rented house for inspection together. They found nothing unusual in his home. The water and the electricity were all normal, as if the owner would return at any time. And the police confirmed that the blood on the clothes were indeed Zhang Yongcheng's through DNA test. So the police believed that he might have had an accident. After a careful search by the police, they found more evidence on the road from Ms. Liu to Zhang Yongcheng's house. They found a pile of sand, which was used by the local villager to repair houses and was piled by the roadside. The police noticed many flies on the sand, so they carefully dug into the sand pile, suspecting that the body might be inside. But there was nobody, only more blood stains. Since the blood had mixed with the sand, it was impossible to determine the amount of blood after testing. The blood was also Zhang Yongchen's blood. So was he injured and taken away by someone? Or was he already dead? The police sent out many people for visits and investigations immediately, but they did not find any new evidence, nor did they find his body. On the third day, Zhang Yan, Zhang Yongchen's elder sister, went to the police and said, I had a dream last night. I dreamed of my brother. He's already dead. He was killed. And his body is buried in a certain place. My brother told me. And I remember it very clearly. Please send someone with me to dig up the body. So everybody, if you were the police, would you believe it? If I were the police, I wouldn't believe it. It's just a dream. Zhang Yan, as a sister, must be very worried about her brother's disappearance. So it's normal to dream about her brother. But to dream that her brother told her he was killed and his body was buried in a certain place, how could this be believed? If victims in murder cases could tell their relatives everything in their dreams, what would be the need for the police? Would there be any unsolvable cases in the world? Isn't this nonsense? The local police didn't believe her and just comforted her, saying that he hadn't been found yet, and he might have been injured and missing, and he might still be alive. So there was no definitive conclusion yet. But Zhang Yan was very agitated, saying, Officer, I'm not lying to you. I remember the place where the body is buried very clearly. Can this be a joke? You must come with me. Dig up his body, and only then can this case be solved. The police had no other clues at the moment, so they could only send someone with some tools and set off with Zhang Yan to dig up the body. But actually, nobody believed her. So everyone, please note that Zhang Yan had never been to this village before, nor had she ever been to Jilin province. If it weren't for the police calling her, she wouldn't have come. She had her own family in her hometown after getting married and having children. Since she was the one who first provided the information about the location of the body, the police also listed her as a suspect, and they conducted a detailed investigation later, confirming that she had never been here before. Of course, she was not the murderer. Under the guidance of Zhang Yan, they walked a small path in the mountains, with various shrubs, very desolate. A person who had never been here before led the police to a piece of open ground about 20 meters away from the railway tracks, and told the police that the body was buried there. The police observed the land here first and found that there were signs of recent disturbance. So several police officers began to dig, and they really dug up a male corpse at a depth of 2 meters underground. When the body was dug out, Zhang Yan cried and said that this was her brother. The police observed the body. Days ago, Ms. Liu found the blood-stained military jacket, the coat, And now the body was wearing pants of the same material and same style. The police conducted an autopsy immediately, and the forensic doctor found that the victim had a total of 13 knife wounds on his body, and the fatal blow pierced his heart. The murderer stabbed him 13 times, so indicating that this was a revenge killing. And there were no signs of a struggle or fight here. This was just the place where the body was buried. However, to dig a 2-meter deep pit indicates that the murderer must be very strong. Moreover, the victim was 180 cm tall and weighed 100 kgs. To kill him, the murderer must also be very strong too. The place where the body was buried, cars could not enter. There were no wheel marks and no footprints. How was the body transported here? This is sandy land, and under normal circumstances, these traces would not disappear within 10 to 15 days. This indicates that the murderer must have cleaned up the traces at the burial site. Moreover, those who know the location of the body are usually one of the most important suspects, like Zhang Yan, the victim's elder sister. If she did not participate in the murder, how does she know the location of the body? Is Zhang Yan lying when she says she dreamed of her brother's body? Did the sister kill her brother with someone else, and then, unable to bear the psychological pressure, lied that her brother told her in a dream and led the police to the burial site? Is it possible? However, the police, after in-depth investigation, found that Zhang Yan was innocent. The sister and brother had a very good relationship, with no motive for the crime, no time to commit the crime, and Zhang Yan was called by the police for the first time to her brother's workplace, a place she had never been to before. And Zhang Yan is just a usual woman who rarely even goes to her own county town in her hometown. But how did Zhang Yan know the location of her brother's burial? A sister who had never been to her brother's workplace led the police to a very desolate location and found her brother's body buried in a 2-meter deep pit. And all this, her sister insisted, was because her brother told her in a dream. Is this possible? The police have always been unable to explain. Anyway, Zhang Yongcheng was murdered. After careful inspections, the time of his death was determined to be June 11th, 2008. The police continued to investigate his various social relationships and soon found new clues. The woman who reported the case, Ms. Liu, had an improper relationship with Zhang Yongcheng. Liu has a husband, surnamed Gu, who is a railway maintenance worker and is often not at home. Note, everybody, that the railway has appeared twice, and the pit where the body was buried is also next to the railway tracks. In addition, Zhang's blood-stained clothes and the sand pile with a lot of blood are not far from Ms. Liu's house. So the police began to investigate Gu in detail. But after the investigation, Gu was not at home during the crime. He was at work. but he was the only one on duty at the time, and he had no witnesses to prove whether he went home on the day of work after discovering his wife's affair with Zhang Yongcheng, and then he killed him. So, Gu has now become a suspect of the police. But there's no way to prove whether he is the murderer or not. The police then found other clues. Miss Liu's lover was not only Zhang, but also a person surnamed Han. The police asked Miss Liu about Han. Miss Liu did not hide and said, Han has a strong possessiveness. He hoped that my husband and I would divorce, but I refused. Later, he said, if you don't divorce, it's okay, but you are not allowed to have relationships with other men anymore. He always come to my house when my husband was not home. Later, I was so annoyed and did not allow him to come to my house anymore. Later, when I partnered with Zhang to do business, Han also came to my house to warn me. The police, based on these clues, investigated Han. Han's brother said that on the night of 11th, around 10 o'clock, he saw his brother at home. But now, Han is not in the village. On the day after the body was found, he went to Shandong to visit his daughter who was in college. This is very suspicious, everybody, because it is now June, and his daughter will be on summer vacation next month, and she would be back very soon. What urgent matter does he have to visit his daughter now? The police and the family called and could not get in touch with him. So, Gu, Han, who is the murderer? Both Gu and Han are now suspects. So who killed Zhang Yongcheng? The police continued to question Miss Liu, and Liu said, after the body was found, I found out 2 knives were missing from my house. After the investigation, it was indeed Miss Liu's husband, Gu, who gave the knives to his brother and told his brother to hide the knives and not to tell others. The police sent the knives to the forensic doctor for testing immediately and found that they were not the murder weapon. When police asked what was going on with Gu and why he hid the knives, Gu replied, I was afraid others would think I was the murderer. I didn't do it. I didn't kill anyone. The investigation into Gu did not make much progress, so it was necessary to continue investigating Han. But Han had not returned and could not be contacted. What should be done? The police came up with a plan and discussed it with Gu. Gu decided to cooperate with police arrangements. So, the police released a fake news. The murderer of Zhang Yongcheng has been arrested, and it is Miss Liu's husband, Gu. On the other hand, they continued to investigate the possibility of Han committing the murder. 3 days after the fake news was released, Han returned to the village, and the police, through continuous investigation, obtained another important clue. A villager said that Han borrowed his wheelbarrow on June 11th in the afternoon, saying he was going to push sand, and the next day he returned it clean. Yeah, washed. The wheelbarrow is likely to be the tool for transporting the body. The police immediately conducted a detailed examination of it. Although it was cleaned very well, the police still found a small amount of blood in a very hidden place. After verification, this is Zhang Yongcheng's blood. So the police quickly applied for a search warrant and conducted a detailed search of Han's home. Soon, under a box filled with books under the bed, they found 2 blood-stained knives. The blood is the victim's, and the shape of the knife is consistent with the shape of the wounds on the body. So this is the key evidence, and Han is the murderer. Han confessed his motive and the process of the crime quickly, which is as follows. I killed Zhang Cheng because I hated him. Liu is my woman, and he dared to touch her, so I killed her. The pit was dug a few days earlier. I planned to kill him on the 11th. Borrowed the wheelbarrow in the afternoon, and at 9:30 in the evening, I took 2 knives and went to Zhang's house. He was not at home, so I went to Liu's house and saw Zhang living and walking towards his own house. I stabbed him, and his coat fell off. He ran forward, and I caught him by the sand pile, where I stabbed him several more times. Then I went home to get the wheelbarrow. Just as I got home, my brother came to my house to borrow something, so he can prove I was at home at 10 o'clock. So he is not deliberately giving false testimony. After my brother left, I waited for him to leave, pushed the wheelbarrow, transported John's body to the pit, and buried him. Han's confession to the case can be simply said as these. In simple terms, this case is that Liu's old lover killed her new lover out of jealousy or a desire to monopolize Liu. This is a typical affair, and there is a Chinese character for the beauty of women, which is Se. The character Se is composed of 2 parts. The upper part is a knife. I have to admire the wisdom of the ancient Chinese ancestors when they created the character. Being greedy for the beauty of women is like having a knife hanging over one's head, which can cause injury or even death. And there is an old Chinese saying, adultery leads to murder, which means that extramarital affairs often lead to murder cases. In fact, many things have proven this statement to be correct and true. The case has been solved, and the real murderer has been arrested. However, how was the burial site discovered? The police need to write a case report when closing the case. Can they write that the police found the burial site guided by the victim's sister's dream? How can they explain this to their superiors? But this is the fact. Soon the case became very famous, and even CCTV reported on it. In the year 2014, a famous host made a program called Catch the Murderer in a Dream, and there are still many videos of this program on the Chinese internet. This incident is a real case that occurred in Jilin province in year 2008. Not some story written by somebody. This incident can be said to be one of the few supernatural events admitted by the authorities. There's another very famous case similar to this, which occurred in the year 2011 in Chuxiong County, Yunnan province. The victim was named Sun Lunsheng. At first, he was missing, and his family could not contact him. So they thought that he had gone out to work, and no one contacted him. Soon, his brother-in-law, named Chang Shaoyun, dreamed of his brother-in-law Sun Lunsheng. Sun said, I was killed, and I was buried in a pile of soil and a grave with trees. Chang Shaoyun did not report to the police, because reporting to the police just because of a dream would be considered mentally abnormal, right? Stupid. But he still took a few friends with tools to dig. They really dug up the body and reported it to the police immediately. who first suspected Chang Shaoyun. However, they soon ruled out the possibility of him committing the crime. Later, it was found that the real criminal was Sun Lunsheng's cousin, yes, the victim's cousin, called Sun Lunben. Sun Lunben had an affair with Sun Lunsheng's wife and killed Sun Lunsheng in fear of being discovered. And that body was hidden very well, and he thought it would never be discovered. However, the victim sent a dream to his brother-in-law Chang Shaoyun, who took his friends to dig up the body. So, everybody, do you think dreams can be the messenger between two worlds? Between the dead and alive? What do you think, everybody? So please share what you think of this story and your stories. Thank you, everybody. This is Alex's Story Time, and I am Alex. See you next time.